Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Artist Chitchats. Thank you so much for submitting all those great questions. We can't wait to chat with our new guest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Artist Chit Chats. We are super excited, and this is already the fifth episode. I can't believe that. And for this episode, we have chosen a really special guest. He is the bass trombonist of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and an international soloist. He keeps traveling the world and keeps impressing people what's possible to do on the bass trombone. So please, let's welcome Brian Hecht. Hi, Brian.
Hey guys.
Hi.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. How's everything going where are you right now, actually?
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta. I'm still at my house here. We've just sort of are hanging around the house and going on a lot of walks, trying to get outdoors as much as we can. And I'm in my basement. This is my practice area of my house here in Atlanta. And yeah, just hanging in there and figuring out things to do to pass the time and stay busy. Little projects,
Perfect. Should we jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do this. What's your least favorite excerpt to play by yourself?
That's gonna have to be Brahms one. Sorry, Brahms. I love you, man, but that's a tough one to play. Just not technically speaking, but just because it's such a supportive role in that chorale that, like we do in Creation or in Fountains of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a subservient role, but you have to spend the same amount of time on it, getting all the details worked out, and that's not exactly the most fun for me.
And what's your least favorite excerpt to teach?
That's an easy answer. That's going to be Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries.
I agree.
The little nuts and bolts of that one don't make it a whole lot of fun to work on because you can't really start working on the music if you're not getting that rhythm correct, and it happens every single measure of the entire excerpt. So that's a frustrating one to work on. You're just constantly focused on the technique, and yeah, not my favorite.
We thank Wagner for making our lives as teacher quite rough there to listen to students. We know your section. We know that you have great people that sit around you. What makes a good colleague?
I feel very fortunate here in Atlanta to be working with such great colleagues around me, both to the left and to the right. We get along really well on and off the stage. We have a great nonverbal communication that it exists on stage. Whenever Nathan changes something or moves in the phrase, we're all listening. We have our radar on, and we're all reacting to what he's doing and moving with him. And it's a trust and respect thing, I think, on stage. And it's extremely important to have a great colleague on stage, but also I think it's really important off stage to be a great colleague as well, just to be a good person. Like with Nathan and we have Jeremy Buckler on second trombone right now. We hang out a lot. We have bourbon backstage after the concerts, and throughout this whole quarantine, we've been texting a lot each day, just checking in on each other and just talking. And I think that's great. That makes me really love my job in the Atlanta Symphony, to have great colleagues on and off the stage. And I think that really is the defining factors right there that makes a great colleague.
We all have a lot of time on our hands right now. What movies would you recommend your fans to watch during this time?
Okay, yeah. So I'm really into sci-fi stuff. I like anything dealing with outer space.
Cool.
Actually, probably one of my favorite things to watch right now is Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos. Right, that one just popped in my head, and I'm glad I remembered that. I absolutely love that show. I don't know if it's still on Netflix. I'm sure if you guys are interested, you'll be able to find it. It's on one of the streaming services. But Cosmos by Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's actually produced by the same guy that produces Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane.
Cool.
Yeah. So nothing. There's unfortunately not too much humor in it, but it's just incredibly well produced and incredibly insightful about our world, the universe. Man, it's so cool. Another couple of ones. Netflix has a really cool series out called Another Life that has great acting, great storyline, and always kind of keeps me guessing about what's happening in the next episode. I kind of hate it whenever I can figure it out. And then just another one like Ad Astra is one that I'm looking forward to watching soon. I just got it, and it's came out last year. Brad Pitt also dealing with space. Just love that
Cool.
stuff.
Excellent. You have done, I can say it, quite well at auditions. Quite well is an understatement. How the hell do you win all these auditions?
um, well, it's I attribute a lot of my process for auditions, which I think is what makes me successful, to maybe not winning them all, but at least getting into finals for almost all of them. Is I had this conversation with Philadelphia Orchestra's clarinetist Ricardo Morales
Mhm.
back at Pacific Music Festival. I was there in 08 and 09, 2008, 2009. And he had just won a couple of auditions in Big Five orchestras that I was blown away. And he ended up staying in Philly too. And I was just blown away. Like, how do you do that? How are you so consistent that you can just go win any job you want? And his answer was that he's willing to work harder than anyone else is willing to. And I really I thought that was such a great answer, because it wasn't, well, I'm just better, right? That he's
Mhm.
not that kind of guy. um he attributed it all to hard work, and I was like, all right, well, how do you then everybody else? He's like, all right, well, how many hours a day are you going to practice for this audition? And at that time I thought 3 was a lot. All right, I'll put in 3 hours a day. And he's like, fine, I'll put in 5. Better yet, I'll put in close to 7. I'll do 5 to 7 every single day.
Mhm.
And it just kind of blew my mind that somebody else was willing to do that. I hadn't experienced any of my colleagues say that number.
Mhm.
None of the professionals I had talked to had mentioned needing to practice, at least not in the brass world. Strings and piano practice like 24 hours a day. Right. But that number for a wind instrument was just kind of way out there, and I was like, all right, I can buy into that. If
Mhm.
I want an audition that much, if I want to win that much, then I'm going to make sure that I leave no doubt in the mind of the committee that I'm going to put in, I'll put in 5 to 7 hours so that
Mhm.
I can get better and work out more details than anyone else that's showing up to this audition. And, um, it's one of those things where I show up, I feel prepared, but you can never be absolutely perfect. So I always play for my colleagues. I record myself a lot. I play for a lot of people. um, and I just keep soaking up as many things as I can, because if you're practicing 5 to 7 hours a day, you're gonna run out of things to work on that you can think of,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna hit a wall at a certain point. And this is where I really think that I push past a lot of my competitors, is that I'm willing to push through that wall. I'm willing to keep going. I'm willing to, whenever I run out of things to work on, I'm going to go play for somebody. I'm going to play for not just other trombone players, but other pianists and string players and woodwind players, and see what they think, because they're all great musicians. They're all going to have different ideas about how these should go. And that gives me more to work on in that 5 to 7 hours. And you're never going to run out of things to work on.
Mhm.
So you just keep working, keep getting better. And I keep this saying on my wall right here above my desk that says, "Prove to yourself every day why you deserve to win."
Cool.
And sorry, this is long-winded, but I feel like it's such a multifaceted question here with auditions, that everybody experiences nerves. And that's my way of combating the nerves, is that if I show up to an audition and I feel that I deserve to win it, because I've got what it takes, and I'm bringing a product that's worth paying for,
Mhm.
it kind of washes those nerves away, and I still feel them, but I'm able to get on stage and pretend like I don't have them. And I think that's so important. But it's a thing where you can't fake that. You can't fake confidence. You can't fake preparation. So you have to prove it to yourself. And if you do that by putting in all that hard work that Ricardo was talking about, and playing for your colleagues, the more feedback you get, the better you feel. And you can show up to an audition not scared and rolling the dice hoping you'll win, but knowing that someone else better have done the exact same work as you and maybe be just a little bit better in order to beat you, because it's going to be very hard to beat you if you've worked that hard.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing and inspiring answer.
And it answers so many questions that we received, little ones that just popped up, and you just perfectly nailed it.
Cool.
One other thing that came up pretty often with auditions, especially, but also aside from auditions, I saw a couple posts of yours and Nate where you worked on doubling and switching from tenor or from bass, vice versa. What are some tips that you give trombonists that want to switch in between horns?
Sure. Yeah. I think the best way to answer this one is to sort of share my own little journey on it so far. Is that for me, I'm one of those players that I don't just pick up an instrument and go and sound great at it. Like I had friends like that in the past, and I really envy them. And I'm not one of those. I have to work for everything. And whenever I first picked up tenor, granted I played tenor, in middle school, high school, in the first 2 years of undergrad, so I have a background. But I was never good at it, man. I was terrible. Like I didn't even get into undergrad, into the music program. I got into University of Texas as a pre-med major. My dad's a doctor, so I was like, I'll be a doctor. And I went and I played for the professor, and he's like, you know what, Brian, maybe in the spring, okay? And that's a whole story for another time. But I weaseled my way into the studio, I was at the bottom, and it wasn't until I switched over to bass that I really. Right. Sorry. There you go. It's okay. It wasn't. I came back to tenor last year, and it wasn't really working very well. I went to Shires, and I got the absolute best instrument I possibly could, and so that I knew that I couldn't blame it on the instrument. And that was important to me, that I get an instrument I knew that other people were sounding great on, and it allowed me to say that all the things wrong have to be me. So I wasn't sounding great, so I contacted the best doublers I know, and so I talked to Nathan Zagans, Jim Nova, and Martin Skippers. And one of the things that they all had mentioned is having a great sound concept for both. And that's something I hadn't mastered yet. I was still approaching the tenor trombone, trying to sound like with my bass trombone sound concept in my head, and I ended up sounding woofy. I ended up sounding just like saggy in pitch, and it was really like it sounded like a bass trombone trying to play tenor. Like, oh, it's good, it's okay, bud. And it wasn't until I kind of had to take like a week or two off at tenor. I put it down because everything I was changing mouthpieces and equipment, and it clearly was not the equipment, because I sounded the same on all the little mouthpieces I changed. They're roughly the same. And so I took these guys' advice, and I went back to all my tenor trombone CDs. So I grabbed Joe Alessi, Trombonastics, Trombonology, Mark Lawrence. I've got Colin Williams CD in my car. I get to hear, Jeremy and Nathan on a regular basis at work. And one of my recent favorite performers, also you, Peter, as well, man. Getting to hear you and Jose Milton Vieira.
Oh,
you
yes.
two guys are like the new powerhouses that I needed to fill my head with as much great tenor trombone playing as I could, and then decide what I wanted to take, from all the different performers. I wanted to be my own, but not just a copy of someone else. So I grabbed a little bit from everybody, and I had to create my tenor trombone sound concept again. And whenever I picked up the tenor again, it was like starting over. It was great. Things started clicking, started working. And I was able to have the same fluency on tenor trombone as I was on bass, and able to get the same progress out of my practice sessions. And that was clearly just the most important thing I could possibly pass on with doubling, is just to make sure you have a crystal clear sound concept that's separate for instrument, with different, colors in your sound that you're wanting to produce. And I think that's really important.
Well, that's super helpful. Thank you.
What comes to your mind first as a guaranteed goosebump moment in classical music?
Okay, easy answer on this one. Sibelius Violin Concerto.
Oh, yes.
Every single time. every single time. And more specifically, Lisa Batiashvili as a soloist. Just every single time I hear her play that, in the first movement,
The
whenever she has
opening. Oh.
the high note, oh my god, the whole orchestra builds up. My whole body, and I get this smile on my face. And it's crazy. It's like you're not even telling yourself to smile; it just appears, you know. And when music can do that to you, it's really unbelievable, because there's very few things in this world that can just take over your body like that and produce like those emotions without you even having to command them and will them forward. So that's easily like the best goosebump moment for me. Yeah.
Well, and you have the smile on your face right now, so it's
I know,
absolutely
I'm
working.
hearing it.
Yeah. Well, look at mine. I'm hearing it too. Is there anything in particular that you are afraid of?
Yeah, it's not even music related, it's sharks, hands
Oh.
down. You know, I was thinking about, like, I think about this, from time to time, like, all right, what scares me? Because I always like to, kind of conquer my fears. That's one that I will never conquer. It's not going to happen. I'm never going to get over it. I'm terrified of sharks.
Why?
I love the beach. That's the problem, is I love going to the beach.
How did it happen with the sharks?
How did it initiate?
Yeah.
Jaws movies ruined me as a kid.
But it has good music.
Yeah. It's got great music. I love John Williams, but I watched all those movies as a kid, and this was before I'd even been to a beach. And so whenever growing up in Texas, you're kind of, especially in Dallas, you're landlocked, and so like I didn't have much experience at the beach. So before I even went to the beach, I had all like 2 or 3 Jaws movies in my mind about people getting eaten at the beach. And so my dad takes me for the first time, and I'm just like, no, I've seen this go down. I'm not falling for this trick. And so I've just never outgrown that fear of sharks. And I know it's unlikely that I'll ever get bit, and I can spend every day of my life in the ocean, but still the fact that it might happen, I can't do it.
That's actually super interesting, because the Sibelius Violin Concerto is Peter's favorite piece too, and he's also afraid of sharks and the sea.
Perfect.
Brother from another mother.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Who are your favorite conductors that you have worked with?
Okay, so I love a lot of conductors that I've worked with. But the absolute top of the tops is going to be Blomstedt. I got to work with him in Cleveland.
Oh, yes.
And that was just absolutely magical.
Did you play some Bruckner?
What did we play?
I've done a lot of Bruckner with him. It's amazing.
I think it might have been, honestly, I can't remember. I'm going to guess. I think it might have been Bruckner 9.
Ah, cool.
But I could be wrong. I can't remember exactly. I just remember just being transfixed on the guy the entire rehearsal, which is rare. You know, I mean, like when you get to see a different conductor, a lot of times we have a lot of guest conductors in Atlanta. The good ones are the ones that make you just stare at them the whole rehearsal, because there's just so much musical information coming from the way they conduct. And the other one is Vasily Petrenko.
Oh, yes.
We had that guy in, and it's been a while. But that's how I know he was like, I really connected with his style of conducting and his music, because he probably conducted us a year and a half ago, and we're in a music director search right now. And I'm not on the committee or anything, so I'm not letting loose any secrets. But I've said to our committee multiple times, like, we've got to consider this guy. If we can get him, I'm sure every orchestra is after this guy. But he was incredible, just something about the way he conducted. It was unbelievable. So those are my 2 favorite right now. Yeah.
Keep going with favorites. What are your favorite recordings?
Favorite recordings. Okay. I kind of ties in a little bit with Blomstedt, the Blomstedt San Francisco recordings. Cannot get past those. Every time I need either a reference, or I've just got, symphonic metamorphosis.
Oh, yes.
Just his Hindemith recordings with San Francisco are just the best of the best. And
top notch, yeah.
So amazing. Those, and also again, a West Coast Tilson Thomas Mahler. I think. Wait, no, same orchestra. San Francisco with Tilson Thomas. All those Mahler recordings are fantastic. I have New Zealand Symphony Orchestra's Sibelius 2.
Cool.
That's a wonderful recording. And another one that I don't think I could call myself a bass trombone player without saying this one, but called National Orchestra. And I think it's Naomi Yarvi.
I think you have to repeat that. I think we just dropped out for a second. What was the last one with the bass trombone?
Yeah, the last one is I really couldn't call myself a true bass trombonist without having a Klinikov recording.
Okay.
Klinikov Symphony No. 1 in there. And that's one is with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra and Naomi Yarvi conducting.
Cool.
Hands down. That's just, I think it's Bob Hughes on the recording, or as we call him, Bob Huge. Sound. He just takes over. It's incredible. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are already at our last question.
Time flies by when you're having fun.
Yeah, that's true. What's your favorite piece to play in the orchestra?
Mahler. I think Mahler. You know, they're all fun. You know, it's not like, you know, all the rest of them don't even, you know, pale in comparison, but there's something that just is different about an orchestra. No matter which orchestra I've played Mahler with, you can tell there's something different in the atmosphere whenever Mahler is on the stand. There's this reverence, this respect that every musician has for that composer. You know, like there's certain, I've talked to string players. String players don't really enjoy Bruckner, and brass loves Bruckner. So, you know, there's like this half hall reverence, you know, for Bruckner whenever you come on stage. But with Mahler, everyone is ready. Everyone has looked at their parts. Everyone has been looking forward to that week all season. And there's just, you can feel the electricity in the air throughout the orchestra, and everyone wants to do a great job. And it's just, the music is incredible. And it's such an experience getting to play Mahler. And, you know, all the chorales, all the big moments, just all the little details he writes into the music that you have to keep practicing, because he introduces these little characters. It's not just musical lines, but all these little characters in the music that you really want to bring out, or else you really truly feel like you're missing something. It's just so much fun, such a challenge to play Mahler every time. I feel like you can always get better at it, and the orchestra just comes together, and it's this singular unit, and it's so cool. Yeah.
Cool. I'm sure many trombonists especially agree with you. But also a lot of other orchestral musicians. Well, we've come to the end. Is there anything... First of all, we want to thank you for taking the time, and we want to thank all the fans for submitting these great questions. Is there anything you want to tell your fans?
Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for, you know, just tuning into my social media channels and supporting me in a lot of this stuff. And, you know, if you ever have any questions, just let me know. bassbonebrian@gmail.com. I try to make myself as available as possible. But also, Peter and Constanze, thank you so much for having me on this show. I've watched the previous 4 episodes, and it's just absolutely great. I love these chit chats, and I'm really looking forward to more of them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing all these inspiring answers with us.
Yeah, thank you all very
much.
much.
Really appreciate it. Bye-bye, Brian. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Artist Chit Chats. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And if so, please donate a little bit to us via info@steinerpeter.com.
Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.